What's going on, Fortnite fam? We are back for more action here in NA East from the Fortnite Champion Series. I'm your host, Zeke, and joining us, we got Sundown and we got Monster D-Face. We're going to be our analysts for all of NA East. Guys, we saw some incredible games in EU. Are you amped for NA East?
I'm so excited for NA East. Had the opportunity to cast EU with Clay and get a chance to watch that action, but now on over across the pond, and we saw a ton of action in the semifinal. The pool of players is going to be absolutely ridiculous, and it's going to be great to be found.
And if it's anything like last week, Zeke, we know we're going to have a tight competition at NA East. They stepped it up for sure.
Ooh, I can't wait, friends. I can't wait. Now, of course, we're getting ready to hop into all the action. The battle bus is being prepared for us. We got some casters, but first, let's talk about the show. Starting with the tournament format itself and what you guys can expect and what we will be diving into. Now, keep in mind, the last 2 weeks of competition have been self-contained games. So we have started with round 1 that is open to champion and above. Come out of there, we have the top 3,000 players move on to round number 2. And now we ourselves are tuning into round number 3, where the top 100 players will advance, where the top 50 players advance to next Friday's heats. Now, of course, the big thing to remember here is that players will have potentially played 14 matches before getting to this point and now have to play another 6 in hopes of qualifying in the top 50 spots. Now, there will also be 200 players that are joining us through series points, and those will be accrued kind of on the back end, and we'll touch base with that a little later on. We'll take a look here at the heat breakdown and the grand finals breakdown. I mean, Sundown, these games themselves have already been absolutely wonderful and incredible. But the heats, though, this is on another level.
The heats are another level for EU and NA. The top 50 players, the top 50 players from each one of these qualifiers will advance through. They get funneled into the heats. There's 4 heats, 100 players per heat. Top 25 from each one of those 4s advance to the grand finals, where we'll see another 6 matches, and in the end, one FNCS solo champion will be crowned per region.
Ooh, the excitement is so real. Now, of course, you're probably asking yourself, well, how are these players racking up the points? Don't worry, we got you guys covered. The point format itself, very similar to something that you have seen in the past, and if you've been keeping up with all the action, you've been with us, you're very familiar with it. But for those of you that might be new, check this out. Victory Royale worth 14 points, plain and simple. Placing anywhere between up to top 75 will get you at least 1 point, but you want to try and place top at least 10, because that's when you'll start to get those big chunk of points, and then top 5 and up being the incremental point differentials. Now, of course, every elimination is worth a point, but now it is capped at 20 eliminations. So if someone gets 25 eliminations, they're only walking away with 20 points total. So a maximum of 34 points can come out of a single game. And don't forget, there is, of course, prizing up on the line for all of these players. Everyone who does participate, all 100 players who have made it to round number 3, will, of course, walk away with something for their time. A little bit of cash, you know, $5,000 isn't anything to scoff at, huh, Monster?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm sorry, 3,000. This is NA East.
Right. But hey, it's still big money. We're talking money for playing not even at the grand final stage. Like, they're just working their way to heats, and this is what Fortnite does, what Epic does. They take good care of the community, but we saw that this is also a big thing to play for, right? Everyone wants that first place. The regions have been showing that as well.
That's right, man. It's so cool to see everyone getting a little bit of that pie for making it this far. And of course, you know, don't forget, top 50 is really where you want to try and land. Here's an overall breakdown of the prize pool. Earlier on in the day, we did see Europe, and they had a $50,000 prize pool total. Here in NA East, $31,250, and the other regions are there on your screen. Now, don't forget, we're back tomorrow, same time, same place. So if you missed EU today, don't worry, you'll have a second shot tomorrow. With that being said, the next thing I actually want to talk about, there's 2 big kind of like announcements that I did want to touch on. The first one is actually something that revolves around Party Royale. If you've hopped in, you've been keeping up, you're already aware of this, or even if you tuned in earlier, you heard my announcement then, get ready for it again. It is all about Shark Week. It is an absolutely incredible time to be playing Fortnite, an incredible time to be hopping into Party Royale, because this week, on August 10th, in Party Royale, we will be an exclusive world premiere episode of the Tiger King Shark. It drops 2 p.m. Eastern and will run at the top of every hour for 24 hours. So definitely hop in, give it a watch, and you know what? Next time a shark jumps into your box, you'll probably understand why. Because sharks are crazy. They're absolutely crazy. They're animals and monsters. And obviously, for more info, don't forget to check out the blog on Fortnite.com. I'm going to be hopping to that, monster. I'm a big fan of Shark Week. I can't miss out on that at all. Now, there is the second thing that I did want to talk about is, of course, Joyride has hit the game. And though a lot of players can cruise on around in vehicles, we will not be seeing the vehicles in competitive play. So just keep your mind on that. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Sundown here this way for a little bit of an announcement.
Yeah, so bringing it back on the competitive side of things, wanted to talk a little bit about what we had going on in terms of an official Discord server. We're working with some top competitive players across all of the regions, not only identify immediate tournament issues come, also competitive impacting bugs, reporting cheaters, teamers, looking into some of that.
You're good. Yeah, thank you so much for that, Sundown. We do appreciate that. And for, of course, all of you guys, don't worry. Having a few technical errors on our side, but we're going to get it all sorted. We'll get our casters and analysts back up on the desk. For now, you're hanging out with your boy, Zeke. Earlier on in the day, Europe provided some absolutely fire games. Some of the highest quality that we've seen. And potentially some of the closest games that we've seen to date. Battling it out was Squeezy and Toos. And going into the final game, Squeezy had a 2-point lead, where then Toos pulled it together, got himself the 3 points, and pushed on up. And of course, we're moving on here to NA East. And here are some of the names that have already come through, and there will be the names we're watching in the 100. We've got Vanish, Roller, Stretch, over from Liquid. You know, a lot of these players, and even some that you're familiar with, may not have even qualified to this point because it's been a pretty steep competition. A lot of these players have truly faced off in the gauntlet and now are joining us here for the next set of games. Graska, another person, Acorn has popped off in such major ways as well. So what we have to keep in mind is the biggest takeaway is a lot of these players are probably in the prime right now because they've already queued up for a potential total of 14 matches. And now they're moving on to these set lobbies where the same 100 players will battle out for 6 matches. So they have to come back, they have to kind of reassess and decide, like, okay, I've been kind of doing these things up to this point. Well, now there's going to be a meta within the meta and this competition specifically. So definitely, the competition will take a big step up. Booga, your world champion there, has qualified. Reverse 2K, an old homie, of course. And Zexro there on screen. Now I'm going to see if my boys are here. Sundown, are you there with me? Turns out he is not. But you know who might be here in just a moment is actually our boy Bala TW, who will be hanging out with us as we take a look at more of the qualified players here in NA East. Oh,
yeah, man.
Fun.
This is
Paul, is that you?
Yeah, I'm here. We're back. I'm in for the guys who are running a little difficulties. We're trying to get them back as fast as possible. But Zeke, I'm here for backup. There are so many good players who qualified for this round 3, but things are slightly different. I'm looking at this list right here. Assault, AJ, Cease. Some of these guys have already pretty much made it, and they have a little bit less pressure, but others have all the pressure on them. And also, I want to point out some people who are triple qualified, the people who've made it 3 times to round 3. That's players like Clicks and others too, all the way through on this list, Zeke.
That's right, man. And like, it's kind of like a tall ask if you kind of think about it, right? 14 matches, you're like, man, you put these players through this, and now they're coming in even hotter. And the thing is, like, this is kind of like a great snapshot of what we can view heading into heats next weekend, because those will also be set lobbies, but that's also the very tippity top, the best of the best facing off. And we've seen some of that, right? Like, even in EU, the games, when they are turned on up to 11, they bring so much heat.
Yeah, they really do. I mean, we saw last weekend some crazy games. We saw this weekend so far with EU, a 1 point gap between the top two, and I expect that NA East is going to be just as close with the way that these guys are going to have to play. But continuing down this list, Zeke, Hogman is here, Calc is here. I already saw Zexro and Macwood on the list too, so that entire trio has made it through in the solo round 3. Gabe as well, one of the triple qualified players. Aspect too, who's coming back and rising himself back to former prominence for Aspect.
You got Dubs, right? Just to name another one. I mean, there's so much talent here in NA East. It's very much a who's who of talented players, right? Like, you can literally point to any single player and be like, yeah, I know who that person is. They've done some incredible things. They've won this tournament. They placed this well. They did well in trios or you know, it's just chock full of talent. My biggest takeaway will be the new faces that we're seeing. Maybe players that didn't necessarily qualify last weekend that have this weekend to get that last chance.
Yeah, and one of those guys is actually Furious, our FNCS Invitational solo champion in NA East, and he's here in round 3 for the first time, and he did really well in the semifinals, back to the old style that we saw him in the Invitational. For him, this is possibly the last chance to qualify for seasonal finals.
That's right. They've got tomorrow and as well the series points to hopefully bring things together. But with that, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the games that happened from round number 2, the qualified players. You know, a lot of these guys did have to put up big if they did hope to make it through that 100 till round 3.
Yeah, and this is just a recap of some of the stuff that we saw in the semifinals. Slacks showed up huge, and we'll take a look at a couple of the Victory Royale moments for all of these guys. But look at the ramps that he has in the final 1v1 to block out the last player. And of course, with Kit's Shockwave Launcher, which we're seeing become even more prominent in the winning moments for everybody in the zone. He's already knocked him out. That's Marzo W who goes down, but still, so many other players too. Our last weekend, day 2 champion, Stretch, and also the DreamHack July champion for NA East, also grabbed a number of Victory Royales. He was up there in the top 15 in the semifinals too, Zeke.
Yeah, let's not forget, last week, him and Booga faced off, right? Stretch was the one that came ahead by 3 points. And this has kind of been the big question, has one carried the other, which one is better, et cetera, et cetera. And that last week was Stretch's week, and now he might be back to try and show us again.
And you know what I loved about these semifinals games right here? Is it's literally a preview of what's to come. This was one of the craziest clutches I have ever seen from Acorn, and we're skipping way ahead, but from the start he was shambles, taking out Hero, the last player before the 1v1 situation, and it was low HP all the way. You saw the crash pad to get back in the zone with literally 1 tick left, and then he dips back in. The confidence to go for that, and then the aim to finish up with the charge shotgun fire, and then the AR swap too. He's going to be contesting against Stretch, who we just saw have a 1v1 in the replay prior to that.
Bro, I'm telling you, these games, I can already tell just by watching some of these replays and these key moments, it's like, you can already tell these players know what's on the line. For those who are looking to qualify, they're like, this is it. Now is my do or die. And for those that have, there's so much confidence, like you're saying, behind every little thing they're doing. Riverson here up on the high ground, 3 players left. And I mean, he's got Kit's Launcher, and we've seen that weapon, that mythic weapon specifically, do so much work in the end game.
Yeah, and Riverson is one of these players that, I mean, we all know him from the days that he played on West, but he's moved east, and since then has flown a little bit under the radar, but he has been performing out of his mind and starting to hit a consistency, starting to hit a stride that I think we might see him be one of the players contesting towards the top at the end of the 6 games today.
That's right, and as long as they're placing top 50, right, they're going to feel good because they're going to be able to move on to heats. Now, for some of these guys, they're looking for that number 1 spot. They want to walk away and say, look, in the second week, I was number 1. Someone like Benji Fishing in EU, right? It's like, to pull out, Reason was day number 1, Benji was day number 2, so you can walk away and be like, okay, so not only did you play all day, but you came out as number 1, I don't know that I can go to that landing spot that I wanted to contest you at, or now I know if I run into you, I have to be super careful because you are a threat to me now.
And we saw turmoil in EU. We saw turmoil even a little bit last week in NA East and week 2 in terms of drop spots, these early plays. And there's going to be more of that too because Booga and everybody else are so key to try to hold on to their seasonal final spots.
That's right. Welcome back, Sundown. Sorry about that again, everyone. Just some technical difficulties. We've got the boys back in the house. We're gearing up to hop out of Battle Bus to get into the first game of the day. We'll be there in just a moment, so stay tuned. Sundown, I mean, these games are turning. I hope, especially you guys, you and Monster, who kind of pulled these clips together. It looks like a lot of these people are ready to play.
They've been ready to play. As we talked about before, this format kind of gets you ready to go, and if you're able to carry the momentum over from the first 2 rounds into the finals, that ends up being a really easy way to tell kind of who's going to end up having a good day and who's not.
Man, that's momentum is the key word there, right? Speaking of momentum, it's time to get going. We're going to get ready to send it over to our casters to get us into the first game of NA East, Aussie Antics, and Shia Wager. Take it away, gents.
All right, game number 1, NA East. It's time to do it again, and there's so many things on the line. My name is Shia Wager. This is Aussie Antics, and we're going to be holding down the fort for you guys today.
Oh, we're going to be holding it down indeed. I'm so ready to get into these games.
Yeah,
and
like I'm noticing. Okay,
Yeah.
hey, let's go for it. We're going straight into games. Game number 1 is starting. The battle bus is ready. These guys have already landed down. Probably they're fighting out. Now, one thing that was said is that a lot of these guys have qualified, but I've noticed something else though, Aussie.
What have you been noticing, Shay? Hit us with it.
I've been noticing that a lot of these guys who are playing today have been on teams together before. So I'm looking at Mac, Zex, and Calc, Macwood and Hogman too, who do it at one point. I'm looking at Booga, Stretch, Clarity G. Although some of these guys have already qualified for heats, respect and beef is on the line. Casker, Posick, so many players who are used to playing with each other are now going to be set head-to-head, and I can't wait to see how that plays out in Game 1 of NA East.
Yeah, sometimes it's friendly rivalries, sometimes it's just rivalries. We talked about earlier, Zeke mentioned it, who carried who in duos, right? There's always these kind of conversations around those big names, and no one wants to be known as the one who was like the weight of their team. So yeah, there's big teams trying to show up. Last week, Stretch came out on top of Booger. Can Booger do it here today? You just don't know. And some of these players have already qualified out of their teams, some haven't. So they've got more to prove than their counterparts as well. And coming into these games, they talked about, it's all about momentum, but it's also a lot about pressure. This is your second last chance to qualify. If they haven't already got their spot, they're feeling the pressure more than their friends.
Yeah, you're talking about momentum, pressure. I just think about holding your drop spot down with those 2 words, because that's where it all kind of starts, right? With 2 hours as well, just to play, and then maybe a 30-minute break before round 3, you don't get to do too much research, and it's that much more intense when you're thinking about where you want to drop.
Yeah, and the same thing as well, those couple of games are really going to decide how it goes. If a player's thinking, hey, like, you know, Stretch is looking good, but maybe I'm going to drop on him and see how we go. Misty's a big POI, and then he cleans you out in game 1. Maybe you change your plan, and that's going to have a big impact on him for the rest of the tournament as well. You really do have to kind of condition those drops. But again, some of these players have qualified already into heats, and they're looking to hold down their drop spot going into heats as well. We've seen some really, really big players have some unfortunate situations in these set lobbies when they go into their heats, and they're just over-contested, and they have to make last-minute plans. But I'm looking at players like Booger, who have been changing up their drop spot quite a lot, who have that versatility. They have a backup plan if all things go wrong. But I know, like you said, some of these players haven't had time to figure out their backup plan yet.
Yeah, I mean, they literally still have questions in their mind, but you have to find answers now. Today's all about making a statement, and game 1 is where you can make the biggest one. That's where people start to get confused, maybe switch their drop spots. So already 10 people down, Aussie. I'm curious to see how far these early fights will go.
Yeah, 10 people down already. Wouldn't expect that one as Glace. Obviously, here's a player over here taking on some Marauders. Massive audio cues there. Marauders obviously giving you quite a bit of loot if you can lock them down, but just like that, Edgy, a player you would not expect to get caught out like that as well. Edgy already out of here. One of the most consistent NA players you're ever going to watch, but those Marauders, they're loud. When they find you, they're loud, but also you've got to be loud to take them out. And Glace, here's that, comes over from Orchard, and he has now got all of Orchard and a whole pack of Marauder loot. He is looking phenomenal into game 1.
Yeah, these are set lobbies, so Edgy has a ton of time to think about how that happened, what to do next. I hope that doesn't fully affect his mental. We're tuning in with Cuddle Bear Gamer 1, who I'm pretty sure is innocent, and he's on his own fight all the way over in the water.
Yeah, it is. Cuddle Bear Gamer looking to try and not be so cuddly here in this first fight as the boat comes in. Maybe one of those rotates that will change up in future. These players probably didn't know they were going to run into each other out here, but Innocent's happy to run into this fight with the SMG out, does some serious damage. Just notice, wasn't even carrying a shotgun. I'm guessing, based on this loot path and this drop, maybe just doesn't actually have the ability to get a shotgun on this rotation, but proves he doesn't need it here, but he's not looking the greatest on loot for it.
I mean, it's so early in the game. First zone barely just showed up, and people are starting to just see where to go. That being said, Innocence is ahead of the game. He's there with the beams. He's down for the count and looking to just deal that damage.
He's dealt some serious damage. We tune back in over a Trick, someone I haven't seen too much. Don't know, maybe first time in the qualifiers. Didn't notice him too much last weekend. Got 2 Peppers in the inventory. Had a lot of discussion around the mobility in the game right now. Who's carrying Peppers? Who's carrying Crash Pads? I think just from watching some of those players that really are dominating in these stack lobbies, like Stretch, like Arkram, who are just putting the Crash Pads to ultimate use. But the Peppers still have their own rights as well, especially for mid-game disengagements. As Trick looking to pull out a trick here and be a little bit sneaky, not opening up this chest, so Jelty might come in here into this little trap, hear the chest and want to get it, and Trick is waiting right on top of it.
Oh, this audio cue, so unfortunate for Jelty if he does come by, but he's avoided the house. He's moving on. I'm pretty sure we've always seen this house be a type of trap. No, there's someone else actually who's coming in. Doesn't have to be Jelty. I think Trick is going to drop down. Big charge shot, but he misses in the box. It's another spray that just lands, though.
Yeah, interesting. Like, I mean, I remember me and Sundown were talking about this a couple of tournaments ago. It's just using those old school Battle Royale-esque strategies. With all the building in the game right now, it's a lot of kind of like brute force fights in Fortnite, but just kind of going for those old sneaky strategies, hiding on top of the chest, hiding around the corners, just getting those advantages. And they do. That's a really big elimination. And Trick now has so much loot, he can't even decide what he wants to do with it.
I mean, what I looked at before when we just tuned in with Trick, we were talking about Peppers versus Crash Pads. I feel like the more offensive players, aggressive players, they go for Crash Pads in their inventory. Trick having Peppers early, just a few shields and guns, might just want to stick to getting more shields, keeping those Peppers, and staying alive for late game.
Ninja on height. Now that's a bit of a throwback shot. This is what we're going to see. If Ninja on height can pull off a win on height, that would just be phenomenal to watch. Kind of coming around here. Good drop spot knowledge here to know he can crouch through that window to get a nice little angle around here. Steamy stacks. A PY we haven't actually seen too much drama around, to be honest, surprisingly. It's a great PY on the map, but the fight's breaking out and Ninja on height jumps in. He goes off the height. That was so close. He was on 4 health there in a single tick zone. He had 3 more seconds to close out, and he does, taking down Polarized, a big name in the finals today. And I'm not entirely sure who Ninja on height is.
I don't know either, but you were talking about classic Fortnite. That's one classic fight for drop ownership. Staying in the storm. I didn't even hear any SMGs, just classic shotgun trades. Good job by Ninja on height, and we'll see if he does take that high ground and win the game.
He's got that extra mobility out of Steamy as well, so the Storm fight there, not such a big deal. Got his Storm Surge tags now as well, so he can rotate a little bit late. We see some of those players going for those later rotates, sitting in zone a little bit, and it does work well, but if you come from an uncontested drop, you need to find your Storm Surge tags somewhere, as we have already lost 15, so maybe NAE's gearing up today, maybe not going to see too much of those Storm Surge issues, but if you're going to get Storm Surge in any game, it's usually in those first couple games when, like you said, Shai, people are trying to find their play style. They're usually playing a bit more passive, feeling out the games, feeling out who's around them, and not taking as many fights. So if we're going to see it at any point, we're probably going to see it in this game.
Yeah, you're talking about Storm Surge. Let me just quickly give you guys a rundown of it in the shortest way possible. Basically, you have to deal damage, and if you don't deal enough, you start taking damage. So Zextros is going to want to get closer to the middle of the map, base up like he is right now, and then just look for tags long range, get that damage dealt more so than all his enemies around him.
Yeah, he's got that burst R in hand too as well. That extra zoom that was added in the most recent season of Fortnite, it helps a lot for those long-range tags. This is usually a go-to choice for a lot of the comp players getting their tags as Day, looking to do the same here, and it does. It changes up the way these kind of stack lobbies play out, because you don't just take shots on enemies you might be able to eliminate. It's just getting damage for the sake of damage, but quite often it can get you kind of held on your rotations too. People are looking to aggressively take some damage on you, so if you're not in the right spot and you're not picking the right rotation, it's going to cause a lot of issues, as Day looking like he's picking a good rotation, as we get a pretty brutal zone for players. I'm imagining around that kind of caddy corners, misty areas. We get a really far northwest zone, which is quite a difficult zone for some of those players to make it through. They have to rotate all the way from their mythic and difficult POI up through authority, as Day's getting into a fight here.
Yeah, beams and bounces all around. I'm not sure what Day wants to do, which person he wants to beam first. There's his target. Nice quick shot off Posick, actually going down. Such an amazing player. Won't be able to see this end game. Now it's Drowsy and Seatplit, who are also just taking this fight, but I think Day now is the one conducting everything. He's going on the wall, box to box. Crash Pads might be able to save Krause up top, but I don't think it's going to be possible. Day is still chasing him down. I think he needs to calm down just a little bit before he gets a little bit too ahead of himself.
No, it looks like he wants to get ahead of himself. Like the launch pad came out and Day is still following here. He's chasing it down. Doesn't need this fight. He has that launch pad on the ground if he wanted to just box up on it. But no, Day thinking he wants to close out this fight. He did come through and he heard the Drowie was taking some damage. Day up against the wall now. I think we're going to have a classic charge shotgun versus tack. No, Drowie has the charge shotgun as well, so he can play that defensive game. He's dropping down, just trying to get what he can out of this fight. But Day is just giving him no breathing room. He is not letting him get out of this one, as I believe that's Drowie's second launch pad. That's 2 launch pads placed there just to get away from Day. That is not how Drowie wanted to play his mid game, as Day still not letting up. This is a stack lobby, Day. This is not a pub. You have to slow down here, but maybe this is the play here, getting some eliminations on the board early, as Blake now looking to see if he can capitalize on this, putting out more pressure on Drowie, and after all that, Day doesn't even get the elimination. Oh, he does. He gets that last shot as Blake, as pressure applied, is just enough to give Day the opening to finally lock it down.
I mean, just think about Day's playstyle, right? All the way until the last game for semifinals, the round just before this, he was in first place. After that, he got bumped down to fourth, but he's playing aggressive and it's working out today. The people who end up in the top 5 for semis and then play this round, they're under a lot more pressure. So Day is just sticking to his game. He's going to keep diving in boxes. I just hope it doesn't end up bad for him.
Yeah, we saw that a little bit as well. P-God, obviously, who came first, and I believe day one of the NA East qualifiers as well. He came into that with a quite aggressive semi-final, toned it back for finals, but he did. He still stuck to his gameplay. It's sometimes not just aggression, it's just confidence as well. And in these set lobbies, especially some of these players who, wow. Sizzlucky, now that's an old classic name going down here. Sizzlucky, a fan favorite, one to go down here. Oakus picking up that elimination. I was going to say, some of these players who maybe their first time in the finals, having those nerves, they can be easier eliminations. Those mistakes you wouldn't expect top tier players to make are normally going to happen in these first few games as they try and feel out the lobby.
Yeah, filling out the lobby and filling out the map too. On the bottom right, it's kind of blown up there. You can see exactly who's under more pressure on the south side and the east side of the zone. They all have to move in, but look at how much space is already taken from Okus's point of view. Yeah, he's got one elimination, but that doesn't actually make him have any more space. Pandoosh, TCAS up top. These guys are not really side by side, but they're claiming every possible beach, hill, shore, and grassy land that no one else can really tag to.
Yeah, and we saw how brutal water zones could be last season. This season, not so bad, because usually the water is now so shallow that you can build out of it, but it gives very clear sight lines. If you don't have some kind of rotation and you're just swimming through the zone, you have nothing to hide behind except for other players' builds. So this first game is a really, really difficult game for these players because they have to set up insanely well. If they pick the wrong island, if they try and go too far, nice headshot snipe. Ninja on height goes down. He does. He makes it out of Steamy. He doesn't get too far, though. This isn't that far from Steamy, but we've seen how deadly that headshot snipe can be. With only 2 bullets remaining, Shaw gets his second elimination of the game.
You were talking about players having to set up, Aussie. Right there, Ninja on height got completely set up going for a beam back in Storm. Just when you think you're safe, I think that's the most dangerous time you can kind of pick to try to go for beams next to the zone. That's a big snipe. That's really good there. And we'll see exactly what that ends up going on for in the late game.
Looks like Ninja on Heist out of here. We just got word from the back that it is Druck who came 75th in DreamHack Finals. So definitely a player we should be aware of here as well. Let's see how he plays out the rest of his days as we see Flopperson with no floppers in the inventory, but 4 of those chug splashes and 2 crash pads. One thing I'm noticing from the people we've seen, Shire, that we're kind of jumping around today, they haven't had a lot of mobility. I'm not seeing a lot of mobility on this map as Roller Pair goes down using what little mobility he probably had with that launch pad.
I know exactly why. That's what the 3rd launch we've seen and maybe the 8th crash pad so far this game. Everyone's just trying to play so safe and disengaged that all the mobility is just basically leaving their inventories. Look at how tight it is on the minimap on the bottom right, Aussie. You basically have to use your big mobility if you want to get past these players.
Yeah, we're going to have to as well. That's what we saw that as well before. Day just chasing someone down, just running, using all the mobility they had. So maybe that's why some of it's going down as Flopperson looking to try and make his rotate on foot and not have to use those crash pads. We've seen how good they can for those late game refreshes. As one of the main issues right now that a lot of these comp Fortnite players are facing at the highest level is the amount of metal availability on the map. It's hard to get it right now and they need their refreshes endgame.
And while we're looking at Rokane right now, him and Gabe are the 2 people that basically had to play or got to play in every single finals and finish in the top 50 in at least the first 2. So this is really good. I want to see exactly how Rokane gets to be in these positions every single week, every single day, and what he does uniquely from early, mid to late game.
It's an incredible consistency. You got to think some of these guys have been playing Fortnite at the highest level for up to 7-8 hours by this point already, and he's doing that 2 days on the weekend and still placing this consistently as Rokane's putting out some pressure now. He needs something though. The Rokane, the consistency might go out the window here because he only has 28 bullets left in that medium ammo for the AR, and he has no spare shields, so he's going to need something pretty soon.
One big thing with all these players that have qualified, we kind of saw it with that little package right before game 1. A lot of them are used to wins, used to safety. Flight completely out of there. He's being taken off by Miro. They're just used to playing box to box, Aussie, and that's just not possible. You can see it when you become and try to feel kind of safe. That's when things look the worst for you. You just get immediately taken out.
Yeah, Miro is someone that last week when I was watching with Monster, who he has a good relationship with. He is a very aggressive player, and I was incredibly impressed. But he had those big games, those big pop-off games, or he had those kind of like drop-offs where he just got taken out a little bit too early. These are some of the best players in the world, trying to take those box fights that would normally be such like an advantage for them, and they're so comfortable with. They're versing good players. We see someone getting hit by the shark. Is Shark Week's coming up, showing us we might have to tune into Party Royale to see why these Sharks are being so aggressive for these players. Takes him down as NorCal Kamari gets an elimination, but again, has the mobility, but doesn't have the meds right now.
I don't think it even matters how much mobility you have. Just look at the amount of players that probably also have crash pads. Yeah, you'll be able to get in the zone, but are you going to be in someone's box? Are you going to land on grass cut by accident and get one charged? Who knows? So you have to be very careful, even if you do have the movement.
Yeah, we've been seeing that a lot with those crash pads. Quite often they just go astray as Rokane gets taken out. There it is, just a one tap from Presto, takes down Rokane. The consistency is going out the window, but still got 5 games to make it count. With how good he's been playing, I would not be surprised if he just maybe had a bit of a misplay here with his rotation, maybe change something up, and he's going to go back to his old play style. But this is a difficult zone to start with, as Presto now setting up in this cone, is looking for the damage going around him. Here's someone get the shield crack, needs to try and find him if he wants to, knows the players beneath him, has the floor, but I don't believe he has control of that one, as it is Flopperson who made that rotate earlier. And yeah, this is getting pretty dense, Sho.
I don't know what's going on. This might be one of the most interesting mid games I've seen, where no one's really pushing box to box. Yeah, they're basing up, but it's just like what Booga's doing. Big tags from long range, Smuggy going down, and it's just like you're not really getting all the refreshes, because it's right there. Someone's right there next to the box. They'll be able to get in there, get all the mats that you work so hard for, and now you're using mobility. You're low on mats. You're Booga in this situation. You're actually at a net negative overall for your loadout.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't get anything from it. He got the siphon, but that's about all he has to claim from that one. And yeah, like you said, it's you get the eliminations, but you have to get the refreshes off it. It's why I'm seeing a lot of the players that are doing so consistently. Is Booga just has to pick up the scraps. He gets a bit of mats, but again, what he's really looking for is those extra meds to carry. Just so if he gets tagged up endgame, he's going to struggle. But I was saying a lot of those players we're seeing play so consistently, Benji, Fishy, Stretch, Arkram, they're changing up their play style in this current meta to try and go for those refreshes really close to him in endgame, rather than maybe going for those beams out of the sky. Because yeah, it gets you a bit of points, but in such a high consistency placement format, and what I'm talking about obviously is how many points you get for placement versus eliminations, it is worth getting the eliminations only really if you get the refreshes. 1 point's nice, but really it's the materials. This illest goes down to Pandush though.
Yeah, you can feel that type of placement format just being played right now too. Yeah, it's not a moving zone, but this is the effect of just playing for that end game, staying in your boxes. Every POV we're seeing is basically a window shot, timed perfectly, gaining eliminations. Pandush did it. We saw Booga do it too. Flopperson tried to, and now he's also moving out very early. I'm just very curious to see how these guys will rotate right after this. That's another one. Onto Jared's. Pandush is looking really good right now.
Well, so far it looks like the Fortnite gods being a little bit favorable though, where I see those 2 dense kind of like amounts of players. Not only did a lot of them down here in this southern zone get the half-half, also there's 2 airdrops. That means there's going to be a guaranteed community launch pad for all those players, which they're all going to know that as well. They're looking around each other to think who's going to place it. As Stretch goes down in the feed, obviously our winner from last qualifying day 2 has gone down here. So this lobby, this round is really making a lot of these top players struggle.
The Fortnite Gods might be next to Bandush's box too. Not only did he get 2 eliminations, he gets a care package, an airdrop basically right beside him to take for a free launch pad. Here is a huge bunch of boxes though. Clarity, we got Zextra, we got Day up top 2. These guys are basically in the top 5 from semifinals, and they're going to be rotating right beside each other.
Yeah, it looks like Clary's going to be setting up for that crash pad as well. He's going to try and maybe kind of link a few of them together, obviously based on momentum. If you can get a few crash pads going in a row, it's quite favorable for you. There's one. Let's see if he hits the second one as well. He does, and we'll see how far he goes. Look at that. Makes it almost, he does. He makes an almost complete opposite half-half. But as you said it earlier, Show, quite often when you make these rotates, you end up in the box of an enemy, or they end up in your box, and Clarity reacts quicker, takes down Crispy, and he gets a good rotate with a nice little refresh now.
That is the perfect thing for Clarity, though. It's usually trouble for a lot of other players, but if you put this man in someone else's box or even put someone else in his, he will always win every single time. I don't know if I've ever seen Clarity even choke a clutch, but he's so good in these stressful moments, and you just saw it right there.
Yeah, it's that tack as well. He's got that tack, so he can kind of have that quicker fire rate to really follow up. If you're running in with that charged shotgun, you got to hit your shot right now. And quite often, when you end up in someone's box like that and it's panicked and you don't really know what's going on around you, the charge can be so unforgiving. As Clarity now just kind of working on taking some of these builds and boxes around him, making sure he has a little safety net, because there's going to be a lot of people moving soon. He wants to make sure no one else moves through his box now, so he can just get those placements. As we see, Fishy, someone who's been performing very, very well recently, who I don't think has qualified yet. I'm not entirely sure, but he's got a nice little box there near Clarity. I'm seeing Mars as well in this one. Glace, who's looking great. Day, Miro, some of those aggressive players we saw from earlier. So looking like on this edge near Fish, he needs to be careful. I'm looking at Miro a Day to try and go a bit aggressive here on the start of this rotate.
Yeah, this rotate might be one of the hardest when it comes to solos because it's very, very mat dependent. Yes, it's not all the way over water, but there's a bunch of players that need to go all the way right past it back over onto land, and then after that claim their own layers. Reverse is way ahead of it though, so he'll get to make all the decisions first. He's above Surge 2, which is also ticking. 13 people need to go down for that Surge to end. Reverse though is looking really, really good in this position.
Yeah, 36 build. Reverse is one of those players, obviously qualified for World Cup, an insane solo play, incredibly smart, and I find that he is one of the best Shambles players I've seen. And when I say Shambles, I'm looking at loadouts like this. No spare shield, only bandages for meds, and only 34 builds. He can usually make this work. He is phenomenal in these low ground positions, and just like that, you see it. He picks up his refresh on Ace, and it's the caddy launcher. Not only did he just pick up a refresh with what little he had, he picked up a refresh on the most stacked player in this lobby.
Stacked, but Reverse still isn't. Just 4 more Shockwave Launcher uses left. Booga is on the back wall, 2 in his box. Sure, get out of there. It's time to go all the way back to land. Booga has 18 shields now, enough to pop a little bit more, a lot of mobility. He just needs to situate himself really fast, heal all the way up, and I feel like he's looking at a really good game ahead of him.
Yeah, he's got that launch pad. He's also got the 4 crash pads. So he's got as much rotation as he could need right now with that 1 flopper, which just, if you take a couple of those storm ticks, is so much more forgiving. As he makes the rotate across, but what is not forgiving is going to the sky with players in the lobby that have aim like that. Booga almost gets taken out, but he has his little breathing room to get his material, to get his meds off now. Still got some material in the back pocket. Booga is looking really, really good in this lobby, Shire.
Yeah, he's got his secret weapon, and that's materials. 82 of them to boot too, and we're just hitting the 7th zone. If he gets to just basically have his own lair, no! He went to the skies, you can't build there, and Booga gets taken out.
That's some incredible aim right now. That is the issue right now. Hits a short pad as well. Even sets it up to minimize how long he was in the sky for, but it's not enough. We're seeing a few players here on low ground, and this zone is going straight across this very flat terrain now. So that low ground is not such a bad spot to be, as we see Aspect, who's trying to go for the high ground, someone who's qualified for every single one of these finals. So he's looking to stamp his mark on it, maybe get a top 5 place here as Casca goes down. And that mid layer right now is insanely congested. Reverse is still in this one. Remember, he does have the caddy launcher in the back pocket, one of the most powerful weapons here, with only 2 rockets holding the angles with Kit's mythic shotgun. I talked about power weapons. That mythic shotgun can hit so very hard on this low ground, and he finally gets some minis. He might actually get above 100 health here, and he does. Only 14 builds for Shy. He's got to make something big happen soon.
He was a ticking time bomb on low ground. It was only a matter of time before he wants to go for height. He got 8 more rockets from that elimination too, so now he's pushing all the way for the top. I think it's Turka's up
so much of Kit's amazing new mythic weapon just completely caused so much chaos. Mad respect, though, because Reverse use it, like, typically you would use it to try and launch other players into the storm. Reverse, though, was like, look, I have no materials, and I'm going to just use this to stay away from people until I have to fight them. That was really well executed, Sundown.
He did a great job using what he had in his utility in his inventory. The lack of builds kind of towards the end, he wanted to get on the edge of the fights, but wasn't necessarily sure how to navigate it. So putting the Shockwave Launcher to good use and hitting shots when he needed to.
There you go. There you go. You like to see it. I mean, Monster, that was pretty well executed. I feel like that the dubs there could have gone either way, but in the end, Reverse 2K does hold the Victory Royale. And of course, these are players they've qualified. They're here for a reason, right?
Yeah, these are players that have been consistent all the way through, dubs included, and that's why he's going to be a part of this whole package here. But it's Mira who we want to highlight. Players that have qualified multiple time and time again. Remember, we're at the third trial for bringing players into the heats, trying to break into that top 50, and of course, there's series points. But players like Miro have shined in the open days and haven't quite found their stride as we got closer and closer to heats days and grand finals.
Yeah, so far we've only seen 6 players qualify for all 3 of the round 3s. That's Liquid Gabe, Pure, Day, NRGs, Clicks, Sentinels, Aspect, Miro, and then C and Roke. Day has honestly been probably the most surprising out of that group in terms of his aggressive playstyle and picking up key eliminations and continually putting himself in a good spot to contest for the top. You can see some good pressure in the box fight here against Drowsy, and he's able to hunt these down and turn them into eliminations in points over and over again. And honestly, so far, in terms of players who have impressed me the most over the course of the solo competitions, Day has got to be up there.
Yeah, Day is absolutely up there, and you can see the aggression coming in. So this is how you get to those open call days, right? You got to be confident to fight. You got to be confident to push through boxes. And that's what he's doing without crash pads, right? We're talking just pure box fight mechanics, pure aggression all the way through. Here's that little highlight onto Gabe, like we said. Players that are consistent and pitching away, or honestly chipping away at the top. And it's these little frags like this that are going to grant you those steal away points that you need. But one of the mans of the hour is not only Reverse 2K, but also FaZe Dubs. Here's the early game look at how he's dropping in the Fortilla, just taking control, right? He hasn't switched his drop spot at all, Sundown. He's been playing every single time for Ocean's Loot, and he's been finding success.
And I think Ocean's Loot is a key part of Dubs' strategy, particularly because he's a player who enjoys trading so much. He likes getting box to box. He takes those fights. You remember it from the World Cup days, him throwing the tomatoes at walls, signaling, hey, I'm friendly, and then just pushing and going absolutely for broke. And you can see him doing the same strategy. Now, one thing I want to note during this run, check right here. 2 eliminations, single-digit builds, only 7 builds going through, but what he's able to do better than any other player are these quick reaction shots and turn high-impact eliminations into more than one. He chains them together so well, picking up the player there in the storm, using the siphon to stay in, and then a well-executed drop down here to give himself the second place, picking up Turkas, but unfortunately going down to the veteran Reverse 2K, both the solo World Cup qualifiers as we were called out, but Reverse catching the better of him there with that shot.
We had to run that one back from the other perspectives just so you could see Reverse 2K popping off, and 6 Elans is nothing to scoff at. Reverse is off to a crazy start this time around.
Guys, I was going to say, having both perspectives of that was so cool, because while we got to watch Reverse hold on and understand, like, mechanically, I have to make it to the end if I want a chance to win. On the other end, you got to see Dubs just navigating, man, absolutely sick. Now, of course, guys, we got to see the standings. We got to understand where these players are after the end of that last game. Reverse 2K picking up the Victory Royale will mean he's holding that #1 spot with 20 total points and 6 eliminations. But Dubs, that second place there with the 5 eliminations, has put him into second place for right now.
And one thing in particular to note, compared to EU, we saw that the top player had 24 points after 2 matches. Now, Reverse getting out to a solid lead. The key thing, will he be able to push forward? You also see the 3-time qualifier Miro rounding out the top 10 there with 10 points. However, this is just the first game, and tons of things will be able to change. Furious, Turkas, Banish, DeRoller, Pandouche, and Cuddle Bear Gamer 1 rounding it out. Also, Who Fishy has been playing really well across all of the FNCS and DreamHack recently, so shout out to him.
Yeah, I want to give him a definite shout out. He also pulled a dubski during the FNCS solo invitational too. So lately he's been on a tear. He hasn't been able to qualify though for this day 3. So he's finally here now, and he's playing exceptional today. Another player who's playing exceptional has been Acorn. He came in strong just for the round 2 of the qualifier. Now obviously we're in the round 3, but he's off to a pretty decent start. 1 elimination, high on the placement points. That's why he's got about 9 right now. So if he can continue to do what he's been doing throughout the day, I think we'll continue to see him push up to the top.
You can see there, 23rd Bugha, the world champion. Last week, we watched him take a 2nd place, and now he wants to come back and try and take that #1 spot. But again, more of these big names. Riverson there in 40th. Now, of course, guys, let's not forget 21 points is that major cutoff for top 50. But right now, a lot of these players, man, it's still, like, we still have 5 games to go. And you can tell for a lot of these guys, they're ready to go. They're ready to put their best foot forward. I mean, what do they need to do to just try and lock up that top 50th spot?
You need to avoid getting caught out off your initial drop, and if there is somebody there, either resolve the fight quickly in terms of a victory, or just create some kind of space for yourself and get into the late game. You have to be getting at least those first couple round of placement points. If you're not hitting top 50, I feel like in the first 2 games, it's really hard to get a rhythm because you're sitting there waiting for the game. You have to be getting at least those first couple round of placement points. If you're not hitting top 50, I feel like in the first 2 games, it's really hard to get a rhythm because you're sitting there waiting for the next game to launch. You can't drop, and if there is somebody there, some points, if you're not hitting top 50, I feel like in the first 2 games, it's really hard to get a rhythm because you're sitting there waiting for the next game to launch. You can't just queue back up and you have to wait, watch everyone else play, and it's so hard to really get yourself going.
Or you can like pull a Kuriyashi on EU and stay there and then throw Sweeze's chance at taking first place because he was popping off all the way through. So, you know, you also got to weigh in when you're doing that good. How do you avoid the guy that could potentially grief your game on a contested drop spot? Because it's not always, you know, going to be a free drop just is going to equal success. We saw Sweeze today and EU pull off contested drop spots, but then ultimately in the end, it bit him in the butt.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of contested, Fortillo, right? Dubs lands, and there's
The radical left has taken over Joe Biden, trillions in new taxes and
But ladies and gentlemen, there's no way anyone beats him. Booga!
Wait, what boat? The little boat that spawns?
I'm uncontested. Wow.
Why are you still thinking boat?
Wait, they changed the boat.
I'm so done. I'm done. How did my bullets miss? I'm actually gonna get off.
No. Actually don't.
Bro, I'm supposed to win that. Now, like, every game, there's gonna be 5 kids there.
Booga's flopping.
Thank the Lord knows.
That is one of the most dominant performances in competitive gaming history.
Yes, sir. Let's go.
Oh, jeez, I got a hot drop already.
Nice. Let's go.
He's got a shotgun.
He does have a shotgun. Yeah, he's not doing anything, D-Nick. Let's go. Let's go. Boys, we're rooting for Nick 830. I want him to qual. Oh my god, this might be my favorite stream ever. Like, I'm not even joking either. Like, I genuinely, for some reason, just love. How would that even work? Like, hold on. Nice. Let's go. Nick. 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 Nice. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. That is nice. Let's go. Nice.
Man.
Let's go, Nick.
Definitely not nervous, boys.
You're not nervous. Let's go, Nick. Keep it going. 1, 2, 3. Dead. Nice. Let's go, Nick. Let's go.
It's lagging.
If you're hearing this, I wish you the best of luck, and I know you got it.
Ooh, that's bad.
Oh, that is bad, chap. $102. Is bursting in this game? He needs the top 10. Top 10 goes crazy. He really needs to play for top 10.
Get me down! Fucking jump fatigue!
How did I just fly up?
Yeah, how did he actually just go up a layer?
Against clicks, you're absolutely right.
It's what he does best, what he practiced so much in that long competitive break that we had around over the New Year area. Dazvix just went to town. He was in creative. He was just practicing his mechanics back to back to back. We've seen recently, though, obviously Clix being known as not having the greatest kind of competitive knowledge. Maybe his rotations being a little bit weaker, his game plan, and he's kind of gone under the wing of Bizzle, obviously one of the greatest minds in competitive Fortnite. And it's really showing here. Clix is playing incredibly consistent and showing that he can alter his game strategy for these set lobbies.
I don't even think it's the brain that's the issue. It's just his temperament and his patience. Bizzle just gets to hold him back just enough for him to actually think about what to do next. But still, having Bizzle on your back, I believe he can make literally anyone have the best game sense possible. And you pair the mechanics of Clix with, that combination, it's absolutely huge. Another player, though, that has good mechanics, a good brain to boot too, is Illust. He'll try to make quick work of this box fight. Voom is going to have to just try to just get away if possible, because less shields up against Illust, it's going to be very hard to win.
Yeah, and you say he's got the loadout to make a quick fight possible too. He had 12 crash pads. I have no idea where he's found those. And comes through with the low ground side jump, just takes down Voom with style, and he's still got 11 crash pads now. So I don't know. I was obviously talking to Reet the other day, and a phenomenally good player out of NA West, incredibly aggressive controller player, dropped 19 eliminations in his semi-final qualifier, and it was off the back of crash pads. If he gets a full set of crash pads, he pretty much just says, all right, this is my game. The Fortnite gods have blessed me. I'm going to W key everyone because I can just get in their box. And that's what we're seeing here with Illust. It's just such a big advantage to have when you have an item that can pretty much just guarantee no piece control needed straight in the box. And if you back your shotgun aim, you're going to win almost every fight.
But how far does that go, right? Because you're going to have to do that every game if that's your game plan. You're using a lot of mobility early, which you won't have late. And that's where I think these aggressive players trip up. Yes, Reet place is very high, but how consistent is that, right? Can this player too do that too? Because Furious is very used to that. He has 3 crash pads. Will he be able to do it too?
Yeah, very aggressive player as well. And he was also playing a lot. He played through the whole NA West DreamHack last night. So he was playing solos for almost 9-10 hours yesterday until the wee hours of the morning. I want to see, does he have the mental fortitude to run it back today? As he gets a nice little angle here, this player has no idea. And he does. He walks straight up into it and he goes down. We see XMB falling here to Furious. Furious doesn't even need to use the shotgun. AR out just takes him down. And looks like that Peely is going to have to go back on vacation for this next lobby and wait it out.
The Banana King has fallen. He had such a good run in the Invitational, looking so good, coming out of absolutely nowhere in every endgame and controlling height without really any of the necessary loot you need to survive up there. But now XMB's not going to be in this game. Furious has a nice win behind him to keep moving forward. Here are 2 players, though, who are also on the up-and-coming, Crispy and Bandit.
Crispy and Bandit looking to kind of set up here, but it looks like it's going a bit slow right now. I'm not sure where the fight is breaking out. More just kind of get that piece control around them if they can. Bandit has that blue tack. He's only got 10 bills though, so Bandit needs to make something here. I think we talked about earlier, Sundown talked about disengaging and knowing when to. I think at this point, he is too deep. He can't disengage. He has to take this fight, and he has to win it if he wants to kind of pick up some momentum here as he does. Crashback comes out. He goes in the box, but player dips out now. Now he's in their box, and like he said, Shy, this is where the consistency goes down because he's now in an enemy box with no builds as he launches him out in the area. Bandit only has 4 health right now and no builds, and yeah, you hit the nail on the head there, Shy. 2 minutes later, we see it. Those crash pad plays can go against you just as easily as they can go for you. It's just pandemonium, and it's whoever can react quicker.
Yeah, when you have top players who are used to it and it's their playstyle, that's one thing. If you're back against the wall, no mats left, a lot of people call it W key. I just call it desperation because there's not an actual way that you're being aggressive. You're just trying to get whatever you can in a very hasty way, and that's where you make mistakes. This is the other side of the coin, though. These are players, TJ, on VSB, on the Bandit squad, actually, playing more passive, playing for position more, and actually defending against possible W keys, sticking to the sides of mountains, places that are easily third-partyable. No one wants to really push that really fast. As a result, though, staying on these mountains, he'll be able to be in a place where he can get as many beams as possible, stay above Storm Surge, and even like this, get some big tags down, and then turn on his own W key.
Yeah, he doesn't get in just quite right with the crash pad there. It kind of hits against the wall, and that's what can happen. It is quite difficult to use, though. Comes around the corner, and there it is, TJ just getting in front of that wall trick. Tried to put up the wall to slow down TJ, but there was no slowing him down. His positioning was perfect, and now he's got a full set of floppers. And I want to talk about floppers real quick, Shio. They were so instrumental in the last Invitational solo FNCS, not happening so much here today, or even the last few qualifiers that we've seen.
I feel like floppers used to be that thing that got your beams basically that much more buffed, got your position that much more buffed. But now they have definitely changed. Not everyone plays for what they are used for now, which I think is looking for more information. Everyone wants the beam. They're not that good at it though, because the shockwave launcher can just throw you out. The glider gun can get right in front of you. Floppers now are good for seeing where crash pads are placed, finding extra launch pads, or basically just taking 1 or 2 more seconds to see what the right layer is overall in front of you. That being said, even with the water levels rising, changing and whatnot, people's loot pads have kind of changed. They're used to not playing floppers anymore, and there's so many other things to hold, like crash pads, like other shields that you would want in your inventory.
Yeah, it's that high ground potential as well, I think. The floppers were so good for those late high ground retakes. Go out into Storm, munch on some floppers, come in late and just surprise that player on high ground. But we saw last game with the reverse 2K with that caddy launcher in hand. The person on high ground is quite often the one with that shockwave launcher, and it's not even how strong that item is, it's how volatile it is. It just shakes everything up in the biggest way. It breaks the builds, it launches them, it launches you. It's just too much to really have that slow, methodical playstyle like he talked about that the floppers enable. Just those extra few seconds to make decisions. Those few seconds delayed is enough for the caddy launcher to really make you pay. As we see, Clarity, who had a good game last game, he's got a good loadout this game as well, securing what will be his second launch pad of the game out of this airdrop, obviously having a guaranteed launch pad drop out of it, and 6 crash pads. He's looking really, really good right now. Looks like he might not secure it though. He does secure it, but a player pushing him want to take it. Edgy going here against Clarity. This is 2 NAE's Titans as Edgy goes straight down trying to get it. Edgy probably having one of the worst tournament starts I think I've ever seen from him here today.
Yeah, first game, it was Marauders that took him down. He was distracted. This time, I saw that Marauder pod coming down, and Clarity is right beside it, taken out again. Or Edgy is right beside it, taken out again. Clarity, though, is going to have a completely different mindset to play with now. He's got 2 full launch pads and a lot of crash pads, too. The big question is how much, more aggressively do you want to play? How far are you going to slow down? And if you do slow down too much, are you missing out on potential eliminations?
This player definitely not slowing down. Onymos is the Marauder pushing up the mountain. Not really sure how it got up here so quickly. I thought it was a player. I have no idea how this Marauder got up that elevation, but it looks like he'll be able to take that one down easily. And the Marauders draw a lot of attention. Like I said in the first game, they're very loud. A lot of people come in and look for those beams as Divine here, part of Nobu, trying to find his way into this one if he can. He's got a really nice little base here with all these builds, but looks like someone's aggressing on into it, wanting to try and kind of make this base for himself. And quite often those players that are based up early like this, they have great piece control in these fights because they have so many of the builds around the fight, but it is usually the way to identify normally a more passive player, and Divine here has no shield and only 43 builds, so I want to see how he plays this, because as much as he's got a nice little spot here for this zone, he doesn't have the loadout he's going to need for endgame, and he's still 13 below Storm Surge as well.
Yeah, he's the aggro player. This is another one of those people from the Invitational who did really well, but then have the question kind of loomed on them, was that a one-off thing, right? Are you going to place in the top 5 again? He had like a kind of middle-ish performance, nice elimination there, but Illis is on his back wall. He was 38th in the competition right now. Now he's kind of rising up, but he hasn't really seen a top 5 since then, and I really want him to get all the way up and perform again.
And he just took down Turker's Watch, who was in 6th place. Someone that I'm happy to admit, have not heard about before today. Had a great game 1, almost broke into that top 5, was tied on points with top 5, but goes down here to Divine, so he is out of there. And that's probably, I think, the first person we've really seen in this major top 10 who's gone down so far.
Now, let's talk about the differences between Game 1 and Game 2 that we're looking at right now, right? So in the first game, it was a non-caddy corner player who had that shockwave launcher. From my knowledge, I'm pretty sure whoever landed caddy still has that launcher now. So reverse 2K, gonna have to play a normal game. That being said, too, Turka has had high ground for a majority of the moving zones. Now, the entire lobby is gonna be having to play with different rules, different pressure. These aggressive players to Furious, taking out Snow, are performing really well in game number 2 before you saw how passive it was. So I feel like this game is going to be a lot faster and very different from what we saw in game 1.
Yeah, and players like Furious, just that the location of the zone makes such a difference. Furious would have been running at this point. He was trying to get to that far northwest zone, but Furious dropping in Lazy Lake, he gets to set up here right now. He's already had his early game fights. He's had his Storm Surge tag, so he's just running at people and taking close range fights. It's not that really slow, methodical, where you're going to position kind of gameplay. Right now, he has more room to breathe and more to play around with. His Polarized, who we saw go down in Steamy last game, looks like maybe he changed up his drop spot, doesn't want to drop on Ninja on Hide anymore, as he's kind of much lower down here now, Misty. I have to think he has not dropped Steamy this game.
Doesn't matter where he chooses his drop, he needs to catch up. He's basically missing out on a whole game because he got taken out so early. Already has one elimination though, so wherever he's dropping, it's working out. He has to get in zone here and then just play with this entire little culmination of players near the south side. I feel like this is a better spot for him, but this has been the same story for Polarized every single time. It's drop spot issues. It's always coming second for some reason against some of the top players in the world. Right now, can he hold out and get to play game 2? He is being pressured by 3 different people on the south side. Still not in zone. He has to dip out. It's 44 seconds till he has to be all the way back in. Nice quick flank on this wall. I have to assume he got this elimination. That's really good for his siphon. That's really good for his overall points. Yes, it's on D-Roller, the man who got first place in the semifinals coming in to this round of the competition. He gets the swappers up. His shields are now almost out. He needs to find more from here, Aussie.
Yeah, we talked about those players at the very start in game 1 today. We talked about those big names, those teammates who are kind of going head to head, and those Titans who need to prove themselves. But there's also players like that who have performed in the Invitational who now need to prove that it wasn't a once-off. They need to prove that they can show up here and they have that consistency to place in another tournament. D-Roller, one of them, who goes down now, which is very unfortunate for him. Furious, another one of those players who did make a bigger name for himself quite recently, but has been performing very, very well so far this season. And he's got the loadout to look pretty good here, but he has got a lot of people around him, and we're seeing a much more relaxed zone placement here for game number 2, but there are some hills and mountains and elevation up there, so it could play a little bit against him, as Furious is playing really aggressive here in game 2.
This is definitely Furious's game. Another trap set, another player gone. I have to assume this is another quick elimination. They're happening so fast that the server can't even keep up. There it is. A nice quick pick onto Okote, who got taken completely out in an instant. Didn't even do any damage to Furious. And now I'm scared if I'm every other player, and I've seen Furious's name 3 times so far in this lobby. 63 people left alive. He's been sticking to low ground. He has the lay of the land, the information as to who's around him. And if you just let Furious into low ground, you saw it last game, he survives all the way to the very end.
Yeah, even Furious's kind of performance in trios recently, it was a very solos affair. It was pretty much 3 solo players playing together, just clutching up ridiculous games in endgame and somehow pulling out consistent points. So he's one of 3 of the most aggressive players in this region who know how to play those games as a solo. He can take on almost anyone toe-to-toe. As Rokane, we talked about him, one of the 2 most consistent players here in these last 3 days of qualifiers, but not having the same consistency here today. Still on only 2 points as he's gained 1 point in game 1 and that top 75 placement. He's in a much better spot this game though, looking really good and a lot more in control than we saw him last time. See if he can put that legendary bolty to action as well, as he only has 63 builds, so he needs that close fight refresh rather than that long range kind of advantage though.
Still similar threats. The last time we left off with him, he was in a metal box. He looked really good. Here's the one shot there. Stretch, actually, who was looking at him this time. He got taken out. So in the first game, Booga was the one to take out Rokane. After that, he kind of got used to that play style. Takes out Stretch wall to wall. Very nice. So it's the mid-range that's Rokane's problem. He just has to overbuild a little bit, get a big base going, and I think he's going to be absolutely fine.
Yeah, he's looking like he's really good now. Oh, maybe not so good though. Someone else pushing here as Rokane goes down to Riversarm. The second of the Liquid Boys comes through and takes him out here. Shy with a little bit of the curse there. The caster curse we're also known for doing, but it looks like 1 Liquid Boy wasn't enough, but apparently 2 Liquid Boys is as Riversarm, who's someone who was struggling. I saw him after game 1, right down there, just inside top 50, I think, on the leaderboard. So looking to have a good game here too. And since coming to NA East, obviously made a name for himself on NA West. He has been proving himself, but I think also struggled in last week's qualifiers too. So Okis in here in the box, and Miro goes down, another one of those aggressive players, and it's looked like we're seeing exactly what we thought would happen. These aggressive players just kind of falling short on the consistency side of things.
The counter to every single aggressive player are sentinels. People like Rokane, people like Okis, right? They set up first, they know exactly where you want to go, and then they just shoot you down. The issue is, though, they need time to set up after one quick shot gets delivered, after they have a good round of defense. You saw what happens when you don't have that setup time. Rokane got taken out. Okis, though, has a little bit of time now to just get all his items back into his inventory. Storm Surge is not going to be an issue. There are just 50 players left alive for just this half and half circle. I'm very curious to see where Okis is going to set up and what information he's going to go for next.
Yeah, it looks like he's pretty confident on getting elimination on the rotate too, not using his 2 chug splashes to get up to an effective 100-100. He's holding on to them, hoping he might get that siphon as well, and then hold on to some of those extra meds and shields. So showing some confidence on the fact that he thinks this rotate is going to be pretty easy for him, as we see Day, someone who's being a lot more aggressive. Game 1, get a really nice shot there onto Rocks, just fell through the sky, and he reacted with almost inhuman reactions there, takes him down with that purple burst rifle. Epic burst rifle in hand is so deadly, normally at that longer range, not so much at that close kind of hip fire distance.
It's so hard to kind of track for that second shot, but Pure Day should just change his name to Pure Aim because that was godlike. You're absolutely right. Now look at all these other boxes, though. This is where you can't really open edits. You can't play like Day. You can't land big shots. You have to be very careful about who's boxed next to you. Flopperson is beside so many top players, and no one's really going down in close range. Yes, Aviv just got taken out by Yeti. That's a long-range beam. 47 people left alive. 10 seconds till the moving zone starts. This is getting very close, and he does not have any mobility to work with.
Doesn't have anything, if anything, to work with. This is one of the saddest loadouts I think I've ever seen. We got 15 cabbages in the inventory. We got 39 builds. The pistol, we've seen obviously the top tier players putting it to work. That green charge, it can do a fair bit of damage, but Flopperson's really going to have to play this one smart because he does not have that loot advantage as Booger, someone who's right near him as well. As this is NA East Day 3, guys. This is game 2. This is their second last chance to qualify for any of these players who haven't already. If they don't come top 50 today or tomorrow and they haven't previously, they're going to have to rely on consistency. So it's not just about that top 50. These guys need to play out every game as consistently as possible to make it to those heats. As Flopperson gets a decent first rotating zone. If it wasn't for his loadout, I think he'd be alright. He's trying to find the information. I think he does find some recycle. No, he doesn't. Walks forward, takes down Polarized, someone you said who just seems to always fall short for some reason, and it's probably plays like that where it just doesn't go in his favor. And Flopperson gets a massive refresh with what I said was the saddest looking loadout I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, vegetarian with just cabbages finally finds his first bite of meat, gets a flopper in the inventory, gets an elimination. Now 6 people have already gotten down, but he's in such a good low ground position all the way in front of the zone. Everyone now has to move straight into him, and he's got so much white HP to work with. I'm just curious to see what happens right there when he loses shields. Now he's in trouble. He's at risk of getting sniped, getting one charge on rotation. Has to be very careful, but has a lot of materials to work with.
Yeah, and he's got that loadout to kind of take it a bit more slow. Like you said, he's got the flopper in those cabbages, so he can take an extra couple seconds to think about how he makes his rotate, because Storm's not really the biggest concern right now. It's that extra damage that's going to eat through that shield. He's only got 19 left, so finds his play from beneath, though. Looks like he's going to go for the edit. He does. Waits for that play to come through. Really nice here. Flopperson, again, has just got himself back into this game. Shows why you can never count it out. Some of these players are so good. He breaks it. He gets the crash pad out. He's now back on the front side. As you see, Hogman on low ground, someone I haven't seen performing too insanely well, but another person who's very good at playing smart. Reverse still in this one as well. So a lot of the players in our top 3 still here. Talbs went down, obviously, but I think we have Hoofishy, Glace, and Reverse still alive as Riversan gets another elimination. Day pushing forward. Only has 23 builds left. Can he find the refresh? Player comes right in front of him, sees that Mogul Master in his sights, probably going to try and go for something on him. He does. Takes down Cuddle Bear Gamer, who we know is, I believe it was Assault or Innocence, I think it was Innocence, who falls now, and Day is looking really good. That was a big mat refresh. Innocence will not be happy.
Yeah, Innocence was found guilty of a really bad rotation. Nice quick pickup there on him. Now it's back to Reverse 2K. I was talking about, can he perform without that shockwave launcher? No more HP to kind of get. No more mats. He's absolutely taken out. He cannot bounce himself back in this game. Deemer picks him up, and now it's up to him to kind of carry on that torch for the game 1 winner. Can he find this one crash pad, another one too, in the right pocket to use while Casker holds it down from height? Macwood is all the way ahead of the zone, sharing boxes next to Hogman. Clarity quarrying down at the low ground. Still, though, it's such a big difference between where height is and where low ground is. I don't think these people will see each other. Al gets taken out, and we're tuning in with Day, who's really close to this top 15 situation. He needs to stay alive and play placements.
He needs to play pace. That's exactly what Casca's doing too. Casca's up there looking pretty. He's just taking shots down. He's just moving forward. He's really not making any massive aggressive plays. He's just racking up those massive placement points. As they get into top 10 here, they are going to get a placement point for every single player that goes down, which when it's coming down to qualifying has been 1 single point every other week. It is huge as Clarity gets another elimination in the feed. Day drops down, tries to make his big move, and he does. He drops down and takes Casca. So Casca has lost the high ground. I wonder who we have up there in that position of absolute power as Gabe goes down here as well. Jelty taking him down. Hogman falls as well. Top 10 now. Every single player that goes down, they are going to get placement. Does Day get another point? That's a 2-point swing. The elimination and the top 10 takes down Magnolia. Day is having a phenomenal game as he pushes through, and it is Jelty on high ground. Ooh. As I see Demur gets knocked out. That has to be the shockwave launcher in play here. Flopperson still down in this mid-ground layer, trying to play what little he has. We've seen how good he is at getting his refreshes. He might need to get one more here to close this out. I think this one might even go to a heal-off show. This one is coming right down to the wire at the end.
It could go to a hill off, but everyone's kind of just used their floppers trying to get into these zones. Day is now looking kind of in trouble with no more big white floppers to take into his big entire arsenal. Jelty's all the way up on high ground. Day and Yeti are down on low trying to find out. Everyone is surviving, but using so many mats. Yeti gets taken out immediately, and now we're down to the final 4.
Demu's coming up from behind. He's looking for a play on Jelty, but Jelty was smart enough to be aware that he was there. The high ground fight goes out. Jelty goes down right now. We have Day. He's on the low ground. Can he close this one out? He has Kit's mythic charge shotgun in the back pocket. Can he get the big shot that we know it's so capable of doing? Day comes around for the side shot. Hits Flopperson. It's not as heavy as what he wanted. Hits him again. Flopperson is just leaving himself open. He gets boxed like a fish. He gets moved around. He looks like a flopper in this endgame as Day, with 3 beautiful side jumps, just takes him out.
A perfect early, middle, and end game for Pure Day. I can't believe someone can play that precise. I want to see exactly what gets broken down. Zeke, the analysts, hit it to me. How did this game go?
I mean, you know, it seemed like today it was a very good day of Fortnite. So he got the victory royale and did not flopper Son at all. With that, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. This is what Shio does.
Yeah, I was wondering where you was going with that, but you lost.
I'm sorry.
I'm still wondering, so let me know when you find it, because
it'll never be found. Anyway, congratulations there, Day. The victory royale, you'll like to see it. Guys, I think a big trend we're seeing today is OG World Cup solo qualifiers are showing up today in big ways and popping off.
I mean, we saw in match number 1 the battle between both the Dubs and Reverse 2K going back-to-back. So let's hop on board and see what some of the other solo World Cup qualifiers did. You can see Aspect picking up an early elim there. Clicks also answering the call with a box fight, what he does best. The 2 early elims going down to the Slayers there. But it just kind of goes to show that even a year later, all of these players who were so consistent back in the World Cup qualifying days are still at the top of their game, doing it among the best of the best in NA East. There's Clarity picking up Edgy there for a key elimination right there at 75th. But Riverson really stole the show away in this game.
Yeah, this is where that big swing comes in, right? It's toward that mid to late game. Once the zones begin to move and start cutting across, see players like Booga finding the frags. We're going to see Clarity popping off. You saw a little taste of what Riverson was doing in lead up to this entire thing. And that's what we're talking about. It's the frags. It's the World Cup players still here, still very much relevant. When was the last time you saw Aspect going this crazy right in Fortnite? So players find their stride, just like Reverse 2K has found his stride in the recent times. And there's the big frag onto N-Pen. And it's just Aspect just tearing up a mess here in the moving zones.
And one of the things you'll notice in particular during this clip is just how good and disciplined these players are during the moving zones in the late game, finding good tarps in the area. Now, we will call out the only solo World Cup qualifier who we did not see was Zexo, unfortunately unable to get himself rolling through this one. We did see him get taken out early there, but just their ability to navigate from box to box and find picks against each other. You can see Clarity here utilizing the crash pad, rotating through, and then boom, huge shot on the opponent right next to him, tracking him all the way. But again, 4 builds left to his name. Riverson doing everything he can to just manufacture an elimination, using the reverse ramp in front of him to get a drop on the Clarity in the top 10. So a little solo qualifier on solo qualifier action right there at the end.
So many of these guys facing off. Now, of course, after the last game, Day did find himself the victory royale with 7 eliminations. Flopperson as well, a second place with 7 again. Both of these guys facing off. My question now is, how does this affect the leaderboard? We know coming out of that first initial game, Reverse held the #1 spot with only 20 points. So now what we have to see is the standings. How are these shaping up here on the first day of competition? And is Reverse 2K still holding the #1 spot? Taking a look together, looks like Day has dethroned him and is now 4 points ahead, 10 eliminations. Both have the victory royale, but I mean, it's literally just the 4 eliminations separating them right now.
4 elims being the difference. You can see Flopperson just behind. Clarity, Yeti, Furious, Claw, the free agent, Cuddle Bear Gamer 1, Oe Who Fishy, and then FaZe Dubs rounding out the top 10. But already a little bit of a gap starting to open up. Day, a 9-point advantage in terms of Yeti, who's in 5th. Right off of there, but he's about 5 points ahead of what the EU pace was. As now we flip on over to the next page to see who's in that top 20. Some more of those solo World Cup qualifiers on the page. You can see Aspect, Riverson, and Booga up there, as well as the triple qualifier Miro.
You gotta give some love to Jelty, who popped off that game as well, making that end game is gonna be the difference maker here. The big placement points that he picks up there, coupled with the elims he was finding, is going to make him very much relevant now in 17th place. So, and it's a tie, right? This is a close run all the way up to 12th. Let's not forget that the difference maker there is just a couple of elims.
Taking a look here, 10 points down in 30th place. Ocus up to 21st. You got only 2 points separating them there. Hopping over to the next page. Looks like 40th right now, 8 points. Sizz Lucky right there on the cups. The top 50 will be moving on. And from other regions, guys, we've seen pretty consistently 21 being that number required to push on through into the top 50. It seems like we're on track.
We'll know right as soon as we get over to that next. I think we're only going to do the 4 pages, though, so you can assume it's right around that line, given how the breakdowns have been and how close the scorings have done. No, we will end up seeing that 5th page, so we'll be able to see what the line looks like right now. And, of course, we're actually a little bit slower on the pace than we have been traditionally. After 2 games, it's been 7. Right now, it's just 6 points, so if anything, a little bit more room for those who had kind of the traditional slower start to get themselves back in and guarantee a spot in the heats next weekend.
And if they don't, make it in that initial bubble, they also have a chance with the series points to push them over and push them into the heats next Friday. You guys don't want to miss that. These set lobbies are fire. Games earlier in EU will be fire. That's probably going to be on a whole different level. Of course, guys, we're getting ready to hop back into the games right now, in fact. So I'm going to see, how can I send this back over to Shy? Shy, be my eyes in the sky. Shy, wager, take it away, my boy.
All right,
Hello?
Zeke.
I'm also here. Hi, Zeke. I'm also doing these games too. I'm doing my best. Thanks, man. Appreciate you. All right, next time we throw in an analyst, we're just going to cut out Zeke completely.